Good. On behalf of the Gig Harbor Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Waterfront Alliance, we want to welcome you guys here today. We are recording it on Zoom for people who are unable to attend, who asked us for that. So we look forward to a very informative day. My name is Marianne Batson. I'm the President and CEO of the Gig Harbor Chamber.
Hi, I'm Carrie Ann Eckberg. I'm the Executive Director for the Downtown Waterfront Alliance and just really excited to be here. I know first time's always a little bit tough. People aren't sure what to expect, but we're really excited to do this and then continue to partner to provide the resources and information that I think the businesses are really going to benefit from. So.
Yeah, and this really came out of some of our conversations about what's been happening in the retail community here in Gig Harbor, and looking to find some resources for folks. I met a couple of folks that have some ideas that they're going to present today, and then we're going to hear a little bit from the city as well, from their perspective on what they're seeing, observing, and whatnot. So we would like to first introduce the mayor, Tracy Markley, who would like to come in and give us some things, and then when you're done, go ahead and introduce Mark. Okay, all right.
Well, thank you everyone for being here, and feel free to adjust this to your height. It moves very easily. So just this mic gives us issues during council meetings, so just letting you know you can do whatever you want with it. So as Mary said, I'm Mayor Tracy Markley. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to the Chamber and the Alliance and to everyone at the city, our staff that have come together to make this happen. This has been a subject that has been keeping me up at night, a lot of nights. As your mayor, it bothers me so much that a lot of our businesses are being hit and the community in general is being affected by this level of crime. We fought like heck this legislative session to try to change things around, and although things didn't change exactly the way we wanted them, we are still hopeful that next session we can be even more prepared coming into it, armed with even more things that we can say, hey, here's some statistics, here's what's going on. We need this to stop. You need to listen to us. So we tried that this time, but we're trying to be very strategic between now and the next legislative session so that we see more success in the future. So just thanks to all of you for being here to learn about how to help your business. Thanks to the Retail Association for being here as well. And I will turn it over to Mark Johnson and Robert maybe later. Okay, he's right after you. Thanks again for coming and sharing with us what we can do.
Good morning. It's great to be here. Thank you, Carrie Ann, for having us up. Miriam, thank you so much, Mayor. I really appreciate it. I just want to commend the city of Gig Harbor. I live in Wood, yeah, I'm not the same disparity, but there is a distinct difference in approach to these issues with jurisdictions, and I just want to commend you, your police department, your chief, for recognizing these issues, holding a meeting like this in the first place to really get the community together, to get your resources together and address the problems that they're facing, because they're very real. And we do need to work on this, and that's what I'm going to touch on. And I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Robert Haase, with some real tangible hands-on things for business owners that have come to participate in this forum as well. So first slide, please. Second slide.
Oh boy. And it's not going. There we go.
Oh, the back one. Here we go. Okay. So first off, a lot of people ask, what is organized retail crime? And it is a conglomeration of a bunch of different things. Let me tell you first what it is really not. It is not petty sustenance shoplifting. People that are stealing food to feed their families or themselves. That is not what organized retail crime or theft is. Those people are hungry. They may be housing insecure. They may not have a job, and they're stealing to feed for themselves. And that is not organized retail crime. Organized retail crime is the monetization of stolen products. It is easier, safer, less risk adverse to steal from a retail establishment and then monetize it, turn it into money, make it into cash, than it is to steal from a bank. The chances of getting apprehended, the penalties if you are ever caught, the chances of you getting caught are all just minuscule compared to stealing from a bank or another financial institution. So organized retail crime has just grown and spiked incredibly. And it is used, the monetization is used to fund all sorts of other criminal activities. And here is just a handful of examples of what is going on. A lot of people are just mystified that it helps fund terrorism. There was a huge crime ring that was apprehended up in Auburn. It's not taking any of your thunder, Robert Nelson. And it was tied back to the Ukraine. It was tied to prostitution, child pornography. The tentacles just reached out in incredible and very disturbing and sad instances. So organized retail crime is a way to fund and truly monetize stolen product and get into other nefarious activities that are impacting our communities locally, nationally, and worldwide. Next one, please. How big of a problem is this? So every year, our national partners, the Retail Industry Leaders Association, the National Retail Federation, survey all of their members nationwide. And nationally, over 54% of all the small businesses have reported an increase in theft. That's a very high number. And then nationally, over $100 billion, that's what the B was stolen from retailers. And just here in Washington State, over $2.7 billion was stolen in products in Washington State. What this does, and this is not on the slide, but think about this, $2.7 billion of product that is stolen, either shipped out of state, fenced online, sold nefariously, no taxes are collected. So not only has the retailers lost $2.7 billion in product, but local governments like the city of Gig Harbor, the state of Washington have lost that sales tax revenue. That's almost $300 million when you add in the B&O tax that is not collected, not going to new fire trucks, not going to new police cruisers or hiring and retaining police officers. So the impact ripples through. It's not just the product that's lost from the big corporations that people like to say, but it's also the small businesses that are really, really impacted and are hurt by this. Next slide, please. So why does this matter? Get another one, would you? Well, number one, and most importantly, there's nothing in those stores that is worth the life or the bodily injury of a customer or the employee of that retail establishment. There's nothing in the store. So number one is the safety and the impacts that these thefts have on consumers and our employees in our stores, our team members. So that is number one, is the safety of our retail establishments. And it costs a lot of money. And you're going to hear from some of these people that do this on a daily is their career and their daily life for retail establishment. But protecting our employees and our customers is the most important thing that we can do. Next one. It has a huge impact on, and just think about it, if you're a retail employer and you are watching somebody walk out with an armload of goods, or you're a customer and you're watching them walk out with an armload of goods, mentally, it's very disturbing to say, hey, you're going to pay for that. They just keep walking and wave at you. I was at a Ross restaurant in Olympia, and this person had an armload of backpacks, branded backpacks, walked out, just kind of waved at the clerk, and I'm sitting there going, what are you doing? Well, he's stealing all that stuff. And I'm going, well, that's wrong here. She's going to chase it. She goes, there's nothing in this store that's worth my life chasing after him. And so he just walks out with all his goods and sells it on the internet and makes money and then funds their organized retail crime. So the impacts on employee mental health is very, very real and very sad. Next. The costs are, so you have losses in product on your shelf. So product shortages are there. Baby food formula, folks, is a huge theft item. The black market's incredible for baby food formula, and it spikes when the manufacturing of baby food formula was really having some issues. That became like liquid gold, powdered gold, and they just stole baby food formula up the storm and were selling it on the black market incredibly. But it really impacts the businesses. They have to increase their prices to try to cover for the loss in the product that they have. And the consumer is the one that ultimately, as we all know, pays for the costs of increased good costs and shortages. Next one, please. So there is no one silver bullet. I'm not here to say if you do this, retail theft, public safety, organized retail crime is going to go away. There's no one thing. It's going to take a multi-pronged approach. And so, first off, is telling the story. A year ago, I met with the Attorney General's office and staff, and I said, you know, there's a real problem with retail theft, organized retail crime. And they're looking at me going, well, really, what's that? And I had to explain to them and tell the story, showing basically what I'm showing you folks here is it's a serious problem. What's it tied to? And they're going, well, that's a real problem. I said, we got to do something about that. So they came up with the idea with us to do an organized retail crime task force, which I'm going to touch on in a second here. So first off, just tell the story to build awareness within communities, within our elected officials, and you're way ahead of a lot of them, understanding the problem and wanting to look at some solutions that can help the community and the cities. Next one. So this was key, and I've touched on this a couple of times already, is where do they sell the stolen products? And a lot of it is being fenced in the darkness of the World Wide Web on the internet. You can start a little account on a platform, a little third-party account, and fence your stolen goods to unsuspecting consumers, stolen goods and counterfeit goods too, for that matter. Thankfully, the U.S. Congress, this was such a pressing issue, the last day of the U.S. Congress in December, they passed what's called the INFORM Act, or the Integrity, Notification, and Fairness on Online Retail Marketplaces, which provides a little bit of information for law enforcement, for prosecutors, law prevention folks, to be able to track the individuals that are fencing stolen goods. This goes into effect in June. And so we're hoping that after June, we're going to see a tapering off of stolen goods being fenced online, which is where a lot of it is done. They were running a mini Amazon distribution center out of Auburn, and they had warehouses full of stolen product. They were filling orders just like a regular retailer did. It was really sad. And so this, we hope, will slow down the fencing of stolen products. Next, please. Passing legislation is for law enforcement and the chief this year, and I really appreciate law enforcement. And thank you, Detective, also for being here. Being in the law enforcement field is getting more and more difficult with the rollbacks and the so-called police reforms that have really handcuffed them being able to do their jobs, which I'll touch on in just a second here. But making it easier for recruitment, retention, and helping and giving them the police department and their officers the tools they need to help pursue these criminal activities. And so we're really pushing hard for that. There were a few bills to help with Washington State Patrol and other police recruitment and retention measures that were passed by the legislature. And then, as I mentioned, the Attorney General's organized retail crime unit was funded to the tune of $2.265 million to hire more prosecutors, investigators, and data analysts, which we very much supported and looking forward to working with. Next one. And one more. Coordination with the Washington State Organized Retail Crime Association. So you're going to hear from the president of the ORCA, and this is really critical to get everybody talking on the same page. What we found out is that the FBI isn't talking to the State Patrol, isn't talking to the Seattle attorney, isn't talking to the King County prosecutor, isn't talking to the Gig Harbor police. These organized retail crime rings, they're everywhere and they spread out. And if you don't have coordination with all the different levels of government and enforcement, you're missing the boat, and it's going to take longer and you're going to duplicate efforts. So getting people on the same page, talking, sharing information is critical. So this ORCA is really, really important. I'm going to let Robert Nelson tell you more about that in a second. Partnering with the retail theft. So they have a meeting coming up in a couple of months, and we'll be working hard. let me just focus on this for a second. This is for the really big fish. We're talking the multi-million-dollar, multi-state, multi-jurisdictional, international, national crime rates. This isn't for the petty theft. This is for the low-level, smaller operations. This is for the really, really big retail theft rates that they're going after. The other thing that this does, which is critical, the thieves and these retail theft rings are very smart. They know the laws. They know when they go into place. This is rolling out the unwelcome mass, these theft rings to come to Washington in the first place. This is a deterrent measure as much as it is an enforcement measure. So we're hoping that those crime rates will say, maybe Washington isn't a really good spot to go to our nefarious activities. So we're really excited about what the ORC task force will do for the bigger operations out there. And lastly, and this is where I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Robert Haase, who has some hands-on practical issues. But the small and mid-sized retailers, they don't have a Robert Nelson with Lowe's, an ORC expert, loss prevention, asset protection individuals. Their loss prevention team is usually the owner of the store. And so having some real tools that Robert's going to talk about is critical in helping those small and mid-sized businesses be able to address these real life problems. And I want to commend folks like Robert, who worked with the other Robert, I call him Robert. They helped develop this guide. So Lowe's, Home Depot, and others helped put this guide together with the Washington Retail Association. And thank you for that. Let me turn it over now, and I'll stick around for questions afterwards. And I'd like to turn it over to Robert Haase, who's going to talk about some hands-on practical tools for small and mid-sized business. Thanks so much, Bob.
Always that was invite point first 5 years. Go ahead.
This is the last one. We're here.
Okay, there's one. All right. On the back table, we have a pile of these paper versions, 24-page manual right now of great information for you on a great aspect of retail crime, public safety. The guys called Navigating Public Safety Retail Crime on purpose. Safety of our employees and safety for our public is most important. The fact that my company lost $100 on a drill is not as important as someone's life. So the best thing I can tell you is that remember the human resources, more about the human, less about the resource, and to make sure that you're helping protect them. There's some information here. We're also producing free curriculum to help in your safety needs. I'm not sure if you all know this, but every business in Washington State with 2 or more employees has to have monthly safety needs. You may not know that. It's #1 LNI ticketed issue of not having a safety plan and not having a safety meeting. They don't say what they're having about. It could be about the floor and being careful not to slip. It should be about using a louder safety, or it could be what do you do if someone comes in with a gun? How do you keep your employees safe? So our free is going to be coming out for free. If you're on our email list for our newsletter to receive it. This information going to help you walk through your employees through training and back this narrative. And it's not horrible we have to do this, by the way, but it's still reality. And it hasn't hit the carpet, same as it has in other cities, but I'm not going to hope this does not happen at all. So this guide will help work on preparing, preventing, protecting what to do after a crime. So we're going to switch from there. By the way, on that QR code, which is also on the back of the book, there's everything in here from witness statements to signage, all things that are book. Probably the most important thing is to talk to your police, your law enforcement in your area before you need them. Have a plan. What do I do if this is happening? What do I do if this is happening in real time? If someone's in my store, how do I alert the police without causing harm? Or there's a secret buzzer, or even do I have a buzzer so I can alert my neighbor to call? So there's different ways to handle this, but have a plan ahead of time for safety for your business. Let's go ahead and go to the next page. I'll skip back to that. One thing talks about this book from the standpoint of not losing your money. I laughed about this. Is that I talked to Secret Service in Seattle, and he says, "Well, the pens they use on dollars, these are real or not?" He says they're BS. So they take a $1 bill, blue shit, either from your home printer and print $100 bill on top. Your minimum wage employees and the counters is supposed to use a pen. says it's real, that you can tell it's fake, I think money in your sector is not a fake dollar bill. Says it's 100. Yeah, but you utilize have property tax, so all this information in here, I had to detect gas, working for police, locally. Let's go to the next slide. One more, I can just saw kind of story. It used to be, if I mentioned a snatch and grab, you think about a jewelry case and a hammer. Now it's a front of the store and a car is stolen. They're crashing their car through. They, cause $100,000 in damage until $3,000. They drive off another stolen car. And what can you do? Well, one of the ideas is having how much life on me. Yeah, one more.
You want me to keep
Oh, this
going?
is important. If you do lose your phone in your store, it can be held months before you have a replacement. For some reason, likelihood boarding of the phone in your store is bad for business. So you can stop that from happening. Next slide. You can stop that from happening. You have ballers, which are concrete, filled steel posts. You have ones that go up and down automatically, but those ballers will stop moving vehicle. Cheaper ways, having on baskets. One more slide. Or another slide. Oh, it must stop the car. Okay, one more. So gabion baskets are, from the city standpoint, you want to put a permanent structure on the sidewalk, get the talk to, building department, work with the city on that. Or you have a temporary gabion basket, fill full of rocks, put a board on top, one more slide for me, make it to a planter, make it pretty, one more. I just saw one in Europe that was watching this beautiful tanker box, and all of a sudden it started moving. Across the quickly. Another way that a truck goes through and back over. So it's more elaborate ways to do it, but this is the cheap way. The truck runs into that basket full of rocks, it will tear out the engine. So that's not right. In the curriculum we actually have more information on what to do during the armed robberies, but you think it will never happen to us. Prepare for it anyway. Make sure your employees, the same as CPR. We use CPR. We have them roll in the dummy. We have them press the chest because when the actual thing happens, we want to have it like clockwork. And so we'll have the scenarios, role playing scenarios. One more. All right, and the biggest thing is if you want to have money for your police, if there's no crime, you don't have much in the way of police necessary, right? So many businesses are saying they won't contact the police because they reported every crime that happened. Their insurance company problem. Or they won't come out to help them because they're too busy. Doesn't matter. Report. So the more you have understanding of what's taking place at your businesses, the more you can actually have personnel in place to help out. On the witness statements, one more page for me. We have these statements to download. This is to supplement the narrative of police officers and write a report about what happens in an event. When a person working in retail counter, they don't know how to tell the story to follow the ground. We can have a simple way to help us document information, like how many guns, what kind of cars are overweight, how tall were they, what kind of, they have a certain scars, they speak a certain way. It's all on here. But we have this in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Korean now on our website. So if you have a convenience store and you have people with different languages in the first language, that will help. Almost like. All right. The last thing is the information in this book talks about how you help the police, how you help the prosecuting attorney actually get their cases fixed. And so that requires having backups of videos, have a way to communicate the information to the police. So there's a lot of pieces of information in this book are going to help out making that happen for you. And lastly, it's employee care. Mark touched on this, but we have to take care of our employees. After the fact, PTSD is really common. Many people who are going to push their face don't come back and work. They just don't return. And so we have horrible stories we can tell you, but rather not. Just prepare for that. How do you protect them from having happened for this? Okay, I think that's it. One more. One more. Okay, so Robert Nelson, president of Washington Organized Regional Crime Association, a nonprofit, and he works with many retailers and loss prevention professionals that helps support the retail crime aspect. So, Robert.
Thank you for having me out here today. Correction, we're actually an aspiring nonprofit. We're still do that. Weird how things go at the state level. So real quick, I do have a video. Can we cut that out and Zoom recording? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to pause the recording?
No, this is a video, so if you're able to pause and bring given that video showing.
Sure.
then I should go.
Sure.
So. Go to the next slide. So, I've been more organized with some investigative for the box company, ranks with, Rose. I'm also the president of the Box Crime Association. I've been doing this for the last 4 years, I have 12 years of experience in the industry, and like marketing, I was saying, this is not just a job, this is not something to supplement your job loss, this is a job. This is what they do for a living, so go ahead and okay. This is an example of one of our organized crime subjects. They are nefarious individuals, simply. I like to share this one specifically because this is one of 14 deaths that he had in a 30-day period. All of them totaling well over $1,200. Per the RCWs, that is organized crime. But what he does with it is he takes it to a fast, right? So he is what's called a booster, someone who goes in and steals stuff. He goes ahead and takes his product out, drives it to wherever he needs to, and then sells it to somebody who then resells it online or through some other third party. On that card below, you have from the black backpack blower, the ego trimmer, and a whole bunch of smaller items, all costing that one was $1,400. That was his third time that we alone at this location alone. So I want to make sure that we're very clear. We're not talking about somebody who is down in the line. This is somebody who does this for a living. So blockchain ORCA has two
There we go.
parts. So there's an online portion and an in-person portion. So online portion, this website WARCA.org allows you to sign up for our platform, which is powered by ORCA, or connects you with the online mobile system. It allows you to get alerts and information from participating retailers and law enforcement. Next slide. All across the nation, we have organized crime associations. Most of them have signed up for work. The other ones are on another great platform. I'm not going to spare that one, but I do know ours. Next one. This is an example of what those instant notifications look like. There is a mobile app, so you can get real-time alerts. And when you're a part of that system, it uses all these different features to connect the dots for you. It will allow you to see self-checkout AI. It allows you to input information, data if you have this technology going. And then it connects these folks together for you. So if I post something on there and people post something on there, and they say, hey, these are the same guys, I don't have to put that together, it will do it for me. It allows you to work with other investigators to build cases and make it bigger. This is obviously much more geared for folks that have someone in their company structure that does this stuff and so on. That being said, I don't want to have just big boxes on there, right? Because the folks who are impacted by this are not just big box retailers. Medium and small stores also have claims to them. It's the same folks that are impacting this. So Watch ORCA hosts a whole myriad of local meetings where collaborative effort between law enforcement, retailers, and prosecutors to find and meet solutions to very complex crimes and complex situations we find ourselves in. We participate with several different prosecutors. The biggest success is out of Seattle, weirdly enough. Seattle has crime. And the new prosecutor at the municipal level works in conjunction with the county prosecutor to compartmentalize some of these crimes. So in an ORCA case, we could have 15 thefts, and we could take 3 of those, have those go to the municipal level, where they will then charge them, and the process is a lot faster. They put them in jail, they go before a judge, and it's a really quick process. Meanwhile, at the felony level, they're building a felony ORCA case, so it's an immediate consequence and a long-term consequence. This has been incredibly effective. We've taken that model and put it in Sandwich County. It's to the point where we're getting 180 days, 360 days for cases that would have sat in the county office for another 6 months or 2 months. Next slide. So we have local meetings, we get together and share intelligence, reporting investigations. We're putting up photos of folks to get them identified. If you have people you need identified, bring them in. Chances are we have seen them. The same folks who are stealing from Home Depot, Fred Meyer, or Walmart, I see smashing mailboxes and stealing catalytic converters. So all these areas, all conversion rates up that because, like Mark said, it's pretty easy right now to offload this product. We work on training. We develop networks with local businesses and build those relationships so we can help each other out. I understand that you don't have in a medium or small business someone there dedicated like myself all this time. So how do you train your employees on witness work? How do you train your employees on building a case, a bad case? We can help you with that. Next slide. So these local meetings, we have regular ones going in Waukegan, Skagit County, Thurston County. We have an online meeting for those who can't make it to those locations. Quarterly meetings are Wilmington, King, and can. We are looking to expand and just in local interests, and then we can have a local meeting that get together and just talk about these issues, share information, and help put a stop to it. Retail theft emphasis, these are really fun. I enjoy these a lot. So what we do is we coordinate with law enforcement. We do have prosecutors that really right along with the law enforcement during these. And we have loss prevention inside the building with law enforcement in there with us. And what we do is we identify the folks, we build the probable cause, and then as they go out the door thinking they're free, and worst case, some guy like say, hey, stop, or say stuff again. But instead, they're met with law enforcement. And look on their face, just the total disdain and oh my gosh, I can't believe something's happening. It's really gratifying. And so it's been incredibly effective. During one of the ones we did in conjunction with Targets in Linwood, PD was able to take out a group that had been going across the country. It's a cash out scheme. Essentially, it comes down to they distract the cashier, they hit cash, the transaction goes through, and they walk out with the product. Then they take that product back to a different Target, and then they refund the four cash used to receipt. Inside the car was thousands of dollars of merchandise. They had close to $200,000 in cash on them. And when the PD was sitting there going, oh my gosh, we caught a hornet's nest. We kind of had to stop the op and deal with that. But that was one huge success off of it. We also arrested 12 other people that night. All of them stealing, all of them were prior theft convictions. It is impactful and it does several things. One, it boosts morale in the store. Every day we'll have these cashiers for sitting there watching one after they go out. And we are not going to have them step away because it is not worth their life. It is not worth them going home injured because of a drill. We want them to be safe. And so seeing somebody get arrested in front of the building is fantastic. We have customers who are witnessing this as well, though. When those customers see that, they feel safer knowing somebody's doing something. Because right now, it's everywhere. The retail landscape has completely changed. If you walk into a Lowe's or a Home Depot, you will not find bolt cutters in the shelf. So you're going to steal from us, bring your own tools. Pages throughout the tools departments. You'll see them throughout the electrical department as well. You're going to see this changing continually because it has to be there for us to sell it. It's not there, we can't sell it. And I, as a consumer, I get frustrated because when I go to purchase something, I just want to grab that part and go, I know what I want. I'm good. I never need your money. Just give me it, I'll give you my money. Problem is that it's hard to find folks, staff, it's hard to hire folks to come in and unlock that door. And so we need to find a better solution. Currently, cages are what we're doing it. But frankly, I'd rather just have it sit on the shelf and be bought by consumers like yourselves. Next slide. So watching ORCA, we do offer small business training. I personally have gone out to businesses and helped them with those witness statement forms. I help them with building cases. I help them identify which products to use when it comes to those security devices. When it comes to security companies, big businesses, we cycle through them pretty quickly to find the good ones. Don't bother cycling through them, just ask us. Let us pay for that big one, and let's find the good ones. This will be sent out, I'll get some here and here. So the flyer, feel free to reach out to me, I've got my business card back on the back table there. We want to help. If it's not myself, I'm gonna make sure that I have somebody who's qualified to come out and speak to the business. Or we get together a local meeting if there's local business in the area, so, next slide. We also have an online conference, this is a flyer from last year's. It's just been established that we will have one again for 2023. These are all the organized crime associations that were spending last year. We have 5 more that signed on this year. It's going to have some great speakers. It's free. I highly recommend it. It is a very informative time to watch and learn from these folks. They've been doing this for a very long time. And I just want to say that the only way we're going to get through this is by coming together as a community. I believe in our community. I believe that we as a group can find a better solution to this. So thank you for having me.
Am I next?
Yes.
Sorry, I wanted to put those in there. Well, good morning. Thank you for your interest in this topic. I'll start with a little story for you. So when I started about 32 years ago, I would have coffee. I worked graveyard shift. I would have coffee with a group of troopers, deputies over at John's restaurant. Old timers might remember that's where Burger King sits now. And a lot of the troopers would talk about getting together with their wives and playing bunco, getting called bunco. And I didn't know what it was, never seen it. I kind of deduced it was a game of dice. Right? And so I listened to this weekly, you know. So a couple months into my career here, I made a traffic stop on a young lady and ran her name on the radio. And she got a couple of warrants out for her arrest for theft by bunco. And I was shocked by this, so I took her to custody and I think I'm gonna panic because I now work with a group of cops that are involved in bunco, right? I didn't know what this was. And it troubled me greatly. I mean, the 20-minute drive to jail, I finally opened the screen, you know, the prisoner in the back. I said, I gotta ask you, what is this theft by bunco? And she said, oh, that's when you shoplift something and then return it for either store credit or money. That was my introduction to retail theft. Thankfully, everybody could separate this ice cream from the criminal conspiracy there. So, when I'm asked what is the biggest problem in Gig Harbor, I don't hesitate. I say retail theft. This is by far our biggest problem here. The underlying real story is drugs, but that's a kind of a side topic. Drugs, the drug trade fuels a lot of our needs for retail theft. But we're thankful that we have a police department here where the officers have a little internal mantra and they say amongst themselves, they say, not in my town. And they mean that. They take it personally when somebody steals from me. When a shoplifting call comes out, they're not hesitating, they're going right there. We'll talk about another program that also gets the officer's attentions, but they really care about what happens to you. So, and so do we want to partner with you. So I was asked to compile some data, go ahead, Tiffany, thank you, about our shoplifting. So even going back further than 2018, our shoplifting calls were pretty static, right around the lower 200s. And now I will say that these are just shoplifting calls. Some of our data includes theft. Some of our database calls are categorized as theft. But let's just look at shoplifting on the surface to identify a trend. We're in the low 200s, and then all of a sudden we have this explosion. And you see the red line there halfway down in 2021. What happened in 2021 to lead to this 40% increase? Right? The 2021 legislative session happened. That's what happened. And that's when the police reform laws came into play and heavy restrictions on first use of force. And what that meant for the first 8 months of the new laws that began in July of 2021 until the next session when they could soften those was law enforcement couldn't touch anyone. It was that bad. To me, when a shoplifter was coming out of a store, we couldn't even escort them back. We couldn't take them by the arm and walk them back into the store. That was a use of force under the strict definition. And so criminals knew this. They would run from us. I personally had a shoplifter who tried to get out of an emergency exit that would let him out, come towards me with his merchandise and say, you can't put a hand on me. Right? So they learned very quickly what they could and couldn't do. And he was wrong in that instance, but And the legislature corrected at least partially the use of force laws in 2021 to clarify that when we could detain someone forcibly, right? So vehicle pursuits is a big one. Why does that relate to retail theft? Well, because if you can make it from the front door of the business to a vehicle, you're safe, right? So you have your friend pick you up at the fire exit in the back in your stolen car, and you run out the back door with an armload of anything, a sewing machine, a KitchenAid blender, a pile of Levi's, whatever, and you get in that car and law enforcement gets behind you and you run, we can't stop you. We have to wait. The pursuit laws are still very strict. I'm not going to go off on too much of a tangent, but they're still heavily restricted. We're not going to be able to chase for retail theft. Let's just leave it at that. What else happened? COVID. You may have heard of that. And what that did is it closed down our jails quite a bit. We couldn't book people into jail. Prior to 2020, we were booking every shoplifter. That was our policy. It's very expensive for us to do that. Jail is expensive. But we were taking people to jail for stealing a candy bar. And we got the attention of at least the local criminals. They knew the lingo. We would arrest somebody and handcuff them and put them in the car, and they would say, wait a minute, you're not going to cite and release me, right? Meaning we're not going to issue them a court date and cut them loose, which many jurisdictions do. And we'd say, no, we're taking you to jail and we want you to tell your friends, right? So it was a pretty tough stance. COVID happened, the jails still kind of locked down, mostly due to staffing issues now. But it remains tough for us to re-implement that policy. And the loss prevention policies kind of hinder us a little bit too. It comes into play more in the bigger box stores. But it goes like this. We don't want an employee to stand in front of a shop. We don't want them to physically put themselves in harm's way. But some of the corporate loss prevention policies even prevent their employees from picking up the phone and calling 911 and saying, I see this person here, they're wearing this, and they're stealing. That's crazy to me. And why is that? Because they're afraid of implicating the wrong person, right? Use profiling or making a mistake, maybe they weren't stealing, something like that to generate bad publicity or to cancel, something like that. So those policies work against us, and we kind of come up with an inventive way to work around that, I think, if people would take advantage of it. We're working with what I call the magnet stores. I think Robert Nelson mentioned that when somebody comes to, I'll use Lowe's or something like that, they're not just in Lowe's or Target, something like that. They're going to go to break into a car or steal a car. They're going to visit some mom and pop shops downtown. They're going to spread their wealth, right? So we try to work with what I call the magnet stores. I used to call one retailer in town here the Bug Light for thieves, because they left a lot of valuable merchandise unsecured. They weren't monitoring their dressing rooms. Right? They would let somebody walk into a dressing room with 5 tablets. I don't know how they're getting 5 tablets in their hands at once. Walk into a dressing room unchallenged, no clothing, and walk out with 1 tablet and put it back on the shelf. I mean, how does that happen? So we have to play a little bit of hardball with them. When we try to work with them, we said, please lock up your stuff. Please monitor your dressing rooms. Please have somebody near the door to greet people and on their way in and out. And they refuse to do that. To the point where we even summoned their corporate loss prevention personnel from out of state to come with us. And they refused to make any of these changes. So we responded and we said, great, unless somebody is getting hurt, we will no longer respond to your store. Okay. And that lasted 1 day. As soon as I issued that policy, they came back and said, okay, we get it. We'll work with it a little bit. And so that's what's gotten better. So it's kind of a two-way street. We want to help you, but you got to work with us as well. Our officers engage in a lot more self-initiated patrol. I get a lot of phone calls about, oh my gosh, why aren't you addressing the person driving 31 miles an hour down my street? You know, well, because we're paying attention to the businesses right now. And this is kind of a short answer to that. Now, we're in the process of staffing up a little bit so that we can kind of get back to some traffic duties as well. But retail theft has so much of our attention that our officers are getting out of their cars and going through our stores and trying to just be a lot more visible in that core. I mentioned a program that we instituted here to try to work around the loss prevention policies called our business check program. So we understand that employee of the XYZ store may not be able to call 911 and say, I've got a shoplifter in my store, because they're gonna violate their corporate policy. So it took us a while, but we worked with our dispatch center, Southbound 911. We had to kind of invent a new policy with them. But it works like this. Any employee, if the store can pick up the phone, dial 911, we don't care, call 911, and say, I'd like a business check. All we have to say, those are the magic words. And the dispatcher or the comm officer on the other end of the phone knows to not ask you any more questions, because that puts you in danger of violating your policy, right? You're just asking for a business check. You're not describing anybody. You don't know what's going on. Certainly now, if there's a real danger going on, we want you to get details. But if there's just something fishy going on in your store, you suspect somebody's shoplifting, just take a funny day. I'd like a business check. Dispatch puts it out to us. They say, hey, gig cover officers, the XYZ store would like a business check. And we respond as quickly as possible. Get out of our car, we come in, sometimes just abandon there. We see people abandoning shopping carts full of merchandise. We'll stop people at the store, we'll still have people believing that we can't touch them, try to walk right next to us. But we're deterring a lot more theft. I showed you the 300 thefts there. We don't know how many thefts get deterred by this, but it's a lot. It's working. Other jurisdictions are getting, we're getting the attention of other jurisdictions in that regard. So that's helpful. We want you to keep doing that. Employee safety, of course, is paramount. And again, somebody mentioned, there's nothing in the store with my wife. That's true. Very true. We don't want anybody to get hurt there. But think about things like personal valuables, especially in the smaller stores. There'll be maybe somebody that leaves their purse or personal belongings in an unsecured area of the store that they think is the back room. That's not off limits to criminals, right? They'll have somebody come in and divert your attention if you're a one-man shop, and while somebody else goes and takes your purse or some personal valuables. So pay attention to those. Unsecured doors that might provide avenues of light, right? So if somebody they don't care that this door does emergency exit on them. They really don't. They're going to go out that way. By the way, the 15-second delay on fire doors, that's beautiful. That really helps a lot. So be aware of what's going on in your perimeter too, outside of your store. Are there people lingering in automobiles, sleeping in cars, things like that? Repeatedly visiting your store and not making purchases. See what's going on. Somebody's watching your store. And then suspicious people, trust your gut. All right. If it looks wrong to you in your store, in your establishment, you're probably right. If you know your store better than we want you to call. I'm going to take one thing away from this. Don't hesitate to call. What I don't like is hearing from citizens, businesses, residents saying, oh, I didn't want to call you because I know you have better things to do. No. You're paying us to protect you, so please call us. Okay. We want that. Go ahead. So be vigilant. Call us all the time. The use of video is very good, and good high quality video is becoming a lot more affordable too. We want you to be a good witness as well. That really helps us. If you can fully describe somebody who maybe stole from your store, we can go visit another adjoining store and identify that person. So be a good witness. If it's a delayed deal, like you discover later that you've had a theft, maybe have your witness statements ready to go for us when we show up, right? That's helpful to us. And have video ready on a flash drive or available for us to download on a flash drive and be carried with us. So have that ready. That helps us be more efficient. And then pay attention to your store layout too. Is your valuable merchandise right up by your front doors, right? Why don't you put your cash register between the door and your most valuable stuff, okay? I know that I'm a little frustrated with a couple of retailers in town that have high price alcohol right near their front doors. Well, the little anti-theft device on the cap isn't going to stop them from stealing that. They don't care. Right? So think about how your store is laid out. If you have things blocking the door too, I'm working with a retailer right now on that they can't see people coming and going. They don't know how much stuff is walking out the door. So be aware of that as well. That might be it. So with that, I can feel maybe a question or two, or we hold the stand. Do you need immediate questions from you at all? If not, I can invite up our city prosecutor, who we work very well with, and listen. And he can kind of talk you through the process and mesmerize you with this high conviction rate. So I'll be around for questions. Thank you.
I'll just start that right away, if you don't mind. Well, as I understand, Glisson, I'm the city prosecutor in City of Carver. I've been the city prosecutor here since 2005. And so for those of you who don't know, this very nice room that we use for our council chambers and for meetings, it's also a courtroom. It's my office is playing right here. I'll just tell you, it's much more pleasant to be in this collaborative environment right now than it is fighting with people all day, which is what I'm usually doing in this room. So thank you all for coming out. So the municipal court handles all misdemeanor crime that occurs within the city limits, for purposes of that and property crimes, that's limits of up to $750. So we're dealing with a decent volume. At those amounts, those are still common organized retail theft defendants that we are dealing with. And they're stealing hundreds of dollars items at a time. Chief said a lot of your high volume, high value, small items, electronics, tools, alcohol, things that they're targeting. The majority of them, they are repeat offenders. They come to us on history, and it's very easy, very quickly to tell the difference between somebody who is a professional organized retail thief from somebody who is a casual or a shoplifter who is the person who made a dumb choice, who's dealing with financial part of it. And we're certainly going to treat them. So the chief pointed out, we've worked very closely on organized retail theft in this community for many years. We've made it a priority in both of our offices. And the reason isn't because necessarily of shrinkage of the store. It's what these defendants bring with them when they come to us. And so that means drugs, it means weapons, it means cars. They don't come to town and steal something to target and then leave peacefully. While they're in the parking lot, they come and they're breaking this car, they're going to take some other things, and big smiles to other people in the community. So we have made a concerted effort to send a message that if Parker is not an attractive place to steal. Some of the great ways that the chief done that is with bail. Like he said, we have suspects all the time, but we don't go to jail. We put back in jail with the resource, the time, and dedication. So it's been really effective. It's difficult during COVID because of jail shutdowns. Some of the limitations on what we wanted to do that's remaining focused because of this community safety issue as far as I'll give you an example. So on Thursday, 2 days from now, we're going to do a trial in this courtroom on that case. This gentleman who was caught in one of these organized retail emphasis days, where I think the Carver police arrested 14 people.
23 in 2 days.
23 in 2 days. They probably didn't. Gentleman's caught stealing $24 of merchandise. So we're gonna have a trial on Thursday. I'm gonna bring a bunch of people from the community and they're gonna take it out of work. You know, spend some of the city's money. I'm sorry. I'm gonna do all this over $24. But it's not about $24. It's not about the 2 items the person's trying to steal from Home Depot. It's about a defendant who has prior convictions for forgery, for counterfeiting, for thefts in other jurisdictions, and just served a prison term for robbery and assault, where he was interrupted by somebody who saw him stealing a catalytic converter out of the people. So it's not about the shoplifting we're concerned about. It's about the other crime that goes along with it. We want to send a message in any way we need to that this is not a community. So our court, like I said, deals with monetarily valued up to $750. What happens, what we see with the county level, the county has a really good program for organized retail theft prosecution, a special unit that deals with targeting these particular individuals who are seeing people deal with. The team is very limited. They will take a high priority defendant when they can. They turn away more than they can take. They just don't have the resources. So you see those cases coming back to us, even though they're what should be felony level thefts. But they're very good at listening to us. If we've got somebody we're dealing with who's a really high priority, high level, dangerous defendant, we will make exceptions. Don't take those cases. So it's a collaborative effort, but we want to focus on what we can do to make the city a big part of safe. that means most of falling back here to the municipal court, judge our prosecution. So with that in mind, we're here because we want to be a resource to you. We want to help you make your businesses safer, make this community safer, make your business more profitable, that I can focus on it that way. For my office, my concern is the end results, right? It's the case are investigated by the police, they end up with me. What I want is to be able to prosecute these cases effectively, take them to court, and be able to win them, and get real penalties, real sanctions for people that are committing these crimes. So yeah, witness statements are important. Video is tremendously important. It is a remarkably powerful tool with the resources that are now out there available to compare with facial recognition and find people, identify people in ways we couldn't have in the past. And so prosecution can be very effective, but it starts at that level with the store, with witness statements, with video. If you've got video in the parking lot, getting license plate numbers, when tracking down people, all of that stuff helps to get a case to me that I can prove I can get real penalties in these cases. So, you know, hopefully that's our little part of this entire system. So, I like getting a witness statement you can download and just keep. I will probably tinker with it a little bit if it were up to me, but the key is like we talked about, those memories, as sharp as they are now, they fade. So getting stuff in on people right away is key. Contact information. So what happens with a lot of these defendants is they have warrants, right? They run, they don't show up to court. So some of these cases, we don't catch up to them on warrants, get them in front of a judge for a year, 2 years. And so getting that stuff recorded and preserved and saved time is what makes cases trust. So with that, my office wants to be a resource. You know, anybody can reach out anytime, talk about what we can do to help make cases that we can prove and how we can help and make all of it. So with that, I'm available for any questions. I'm more than happy to talk about this. Anybody wants to.
Stan, can I ask you to go into what happens to the defense typically on a first time offender, second time offender sort of thing? What happens to their case?
Sure. So we are very cognizant of treating similarly situated people similarly, right? So we have sort of two types of criminal defendants when it comes to that. We have kid shoplifters who steal candy, makeup, maybe a 4-pack of wine coolers or something. They still make wine coolers. And then we have the people who are professional, organized retail. And it's immediately apparent which they are. So if you have a teenager who gets arrested for shoplifting, please don't worry, I'm put in jail for 6 months, I'm not. We do have diversion programs where it's remarkably effective. It's a probationary term, and they contain some community service, and they contain some, you know, carrot and stick kind of mentality. But first time offenders earn a dismissal of their charge if they can follow through and, you know, do all the things we're supposed to do. We don't do it for second time offenders, we certainly don't do it for serious and violent, that's that kind of thing. But we don't want somebody's otherwise positive future to be railed over something that was useful in discretion. But our response has been very consistent, really marching lockstep with the police about how to deal with people when we know they're in serious.
What I've noticed is a lot of the people that squatters, you know, as a trespasser, and they likely don't have money for housing, and so they're not gonna have money for other things, and this probably intertwined with what the police are doing. But what do you see in the prosecutor's office for Gig Harbor, and then working with the other prosecutors, like for the rural unincorporated areas, with dealing with these squatters, and without penalizing the homeowner trying to save that their.
And you know, those are difficult. In most of those cases, in my experience, we're seeing some sort of mental health component to that. And so, you know, we try to be very receptive to hearing about alternate reasons that people commit any criminal behavior, not just this. So I try to have a very open door policy with defense who wants to come to me and say, yes, my client did X. but there's more to the story, and usually that's kind of where those cases end up. If you're talking about, if that's if I'm answering your question, if you're talking about those sorts of defendants. Those people, when we see them in theft scenarios, it's not stuff you're gonna turn around and turn into money. So is that am I answering your question? Or did you need something?
It's an answer. So for a real estate broker going into a property or even bringing a customer to a property, it's a big safety concern, and many times an absentee owner, either they just moved out or there's been a vacant property, they don't really know what's going on. So the real estate broker can tell people, but I know that these likely one come from an outsider that is trusted. But this causes a lot of havoc in my world, where a consumer wants to buy a home and the seller wants to sell it. And the lawyers, I'm sorry, the legislature have mucked everything up with the process of evicting the squatter.
Yeah, that's a little different. Yeah, property, I hear you, and they're frustrating, we don't see them in the city limits a lot, we really don't. The issue usually for us gets to us because of property damage, trespassing, that's a thing. And there's gonna be arrests and gonna be prosecutions, but those, the very few that we get tend to lump them into sort of forensic poverty category. When we see them in a significant property damage, then you're different, obviously. But you're right, there's some real limitations that we're working with, and it's purely somebody who's squatting. It's significant limitations. There's the legislature.
Working up the food chain above the troops on the claim. Are the feds or the state, if there are the police somehow working their way up to the organizers? The local organizers who put these spots on. How's that?
Let me join your statements. Tag team, you say it. So yeah, I think that Robert Nelson here mentioned some regional meetings that they have to work with other agencies and significant retailers to identify groups of people. We do the same. I had a projector on our social media, pages to help identify people. And we'll not stop there. Oftentimes we figure out where they're fencing. A couple of years ago, we were involved in breaking up a pretty good size theft ring that had big warehouse in Lee. And so we were able to work our way climb the pool there and trying to get the feds involved. A counterfeit case very similar to counterfeit merchandise, we got them involved. So yeah, we were trying to, as our resources allow, to find a bigger fish.
But it sounds like the feds are not yet organized, like they say, with meth task force. Things.
Yeah, so maybe even Detective Gann can chime in, I'm not sure, but we have little task forces that work together, like even on this side of the bridge, and Pierce County get together with county and state resources to conduct retail that emphasis. As far as investigation, probably on top of that, expand, that's where our meeting will have our resources.
So I can talk a little bit about that. So Mark mentioned the organized crime task force with the Attorney General's office. So that was formed just this year, and they just got the funding for it. But we're going to have investigators, they're going to have prosecutors and crime analysts, but also work in conjunction with folks like myself to investigate these folks. It will be for just the larger groups of offenses, those who are buying and selling those stolen goods. And it's for those larger cases that go across state lines internationally, those ones like that pawn shop in Auburn. Like Mark was saying, that was a multifaceted investigation. It had 96 pallets of stolen merchandise at the point where they were raided. They have been taking about $1 million of stolen goods every month. It was insane. Everything from lovers to lovers was there. It was a lot of products. And they were bringing girls up from Ukraine, having them strip the product protection while they identify the features on, uploading it to their various online second party reseller platforms. And then selling to those consumers. They were also looking into drugs. And then when they did raid that shop, they found that the computer was filled with child sexual exploitation material, and the individual was actually unidentified individual they were looking for from the FBI. So those investigations are being conducted with local law enforcement currently, but they are trying to get one centralized for as well as through the Attorney General's office.
I'll tack on just one more thing, that we do rely on larger retail groups to help us. They can do things we can't do. We talked a little bit, just skimmed about artificial intelligence. The mood in Olympia and legislation around the use of artificial intelligence databases is strictly prohibited. We're handicapped quite a bit, but retailers more and more are starting to use that technology, even as Robert showed how to associate some different stores, facial recognition to tie them all together. So, well, that's probably the way to future. Other questions?
Right, how much of the crime getting harder around is organized versus should we do more concerned about it?
Hard to draw that specific line and the stand way into. But I'll say this, that when we analyze the data on where our arrestees come from, they're all over. California, Bellingham, Port Angeles, the I-5 corridor is heavy. We've interacted groups from New York that come on here specifically like cell phones. That's the hot thing for that group. And I can't draw you a line, but we do have a heavy organized presence here. We arrest people with shopping lists, right? They're told to go out and steal 3 KitchenAid blenders, things like that, tools, things like that are defensible and for decent money. So, Sandy,
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. It's certainly more than half, and it's the percentage of the cases that come through this court that are immediately connectable to organized retail theft is the percentage grows every year. And totally, it could be 3/4 to theft related cases that we see now. Yeah, it's all the time. So when they did this census, we're just talking about January. And I think 14 of those arrests came to out of those 14, probably 10 of them had some significant criminal theft related history that says this is not a one-time thing. It's something like you said, this person does.
Earlier, I mockingly said if you see a candy bar, and take it to jail. That was some hyperbole there. A lot of these are resolved at the moment of the crime too. For instance, if you do have the 15-year-old that steals the candy bar, they're not going to come to stand support or rate call. We're going to probably try to get right back into the store, call parents, and then work it out. So some of those are resolved in that manner. So it stands to be more a higher percentage, I guess. Question back.
All the question, or we just motion to stay having some from
Okay, two-part question. I would say the majority of it is somehow drug related, overwhelming majority of it. Fentanyl is king, right? So everybody's stealing their stuff to turn into money or new pills. At a state level, there is no drug court that would be handled at a county level, right? And in fact, this week, the special session of the legislature is talking about drug possession and use. With that, we've got our eyes glued to how much funding would be available to work with our municipal court for prosecutorial diversion, the counseling programs, things like that. We can kind of start getting that reeled in a little bit, maybe the retail theft goes down a bit.
Yeah, to respond about court options, we do. At the municipal court, we don't. These are all done in felony. So with a number of therapeutic court options that exist, drug court exists in all 39 counties. Different counties have diversion programs, different counties have different types of things, different types of problems with mental health courts that are available. The challenge that you get with these cases a lot is that people who are involved in court that people that kind of trap. So they may have a case in Kent, they may have a case in Fort Orchard, they may have a case in Olympia. And so to get them all into the jurisdiction of one county is where that logjam kind of happens, if that makes sense. But yeah, absolutely, we see a lot of these. Right. We see a lot of theft related cases going to drug court for sure, and it's a program that worked, it's phenomenal. But Chief, I agree with Chief that fentanyl's involved in a lot of these cases, and the person who's doing the boosting isn't always the addict, right? These are people who are working professionally in a lot of situations. They don't have a drug problem. They have a criminal problem because they steal stuff and they sell the drug and they sell the drug. So they report it, give stuff to a drug dealer. Treatment works. We have treatment options. These cases aren't really appropriate.
So I know it's not several of the slides you mentioned trespass, the issue people trespass. What's the threshold in Big Harbor if they violated twice, if they violated 15 times? What's the threshold for there being an actual penalty for trespass? If the organization has issued that person a trespass with the property? Well, I'll take the first half of it. We'll issue a trespass admonishment anyway. If you are a private business, that's your property, your right to exclude somebody from that. And we will issue a written trespass notification and enter that in the system. If they come back then knowingly and violate those terms, they would be subject to arrest. From there, though,
Yeah, I mean, we prosecute those cases. There's a validly issued trespass order and they come back and call, and the police come back. And yeah, we'll take that report and we'll file those cases every time. I mean, on a first offense, is it jailable? I don't know if they're going to jail on a first offense. But certainly we're going to drag it into the system. There's going to be some consequences for it. We're going to disincentivize that behavior.
Very, very pleased with our prosecution rate here at the Gig Harbor Municipal Court stand. We did an analysis of our court several years. I think that our prosecution rate of cases filed was around 97%, which is extraordinary. So we were very, very close to standing and successful results. Miriam again. Okay. Thank you very much.
So one of the things that I know the city does quite a lot is really pressing the volunteer. And you were on an email and they're going to be voting on you today.
Yes, so how many of you are familiar with the Blake fix? So some of you. So this is the law that we were hoping that they would pass during the legislative session. It did not pass. Basically, it's a law to make drugs illegal again in Washington state. So the legislature has a new draft before them. A special session was called, they met, they have a new draft. They are voting this afternoon. So I wanted to read you just kind of the summarized version of what is going before them today and what that would mean in terms of a state law for illegal, making drugs illegal. So possession would be, this is if they vote on it exactly like this, then this is what would happen with drugs in Washington state. Possession would be a gross misdemeanor. Yes, because we were fighting for that. Use in a public place is also a gross misdemeanor. Both are subject to a sentence of up to 180 days, a fine no more than $1,000 or both. If a defendant has 2 or more prior convictions, they may be sentenced up to 364 days, fined up to $1,000 or both. Diversion by prosecutors and law enforcement is encouraged but not required. The bill is ambivalent on diversion method, law enforcement assisted diversion, recovery navigator program, or an arrest and jail alternative program. The court may only grant motions for diversion if the prosecuting attorney agrees. The prosecuting attorney may divert additional charges related to substance use disorder from non-felony offenses that are not crimes against people. Individuals must substantially comply with treatment for 12 months or by completing recommended treatment and services, whichever comes first. Local governments are preempted on regulating drug paraphernalia outside of harm reduction programs. So this essentially makes possession of drug paraphernalia, syringes, pipes, etc. legal. opioid treatment programs, recovery residences, substance use disorder treatment facilities, and harm reduction programs. Oh, hold on, they changed that one. They are added to the list of essential public facilities, but safe injection sites are specifically excluded from the definition of an essential public facility. And then the last one, the grant program for LEAD, which was law enforcement assisted diversion, is established and funded at $5 million for the biennium. So if it passes exactly like this, and just, so you know, we have no more public input at this point as a city. We can't go and testify. We can't try to bargain with them to not be preempted on this drug paraphernalia situation. This is it. So what the city has already been doing, we have already been looking at other cities that have passed their own ordinances for making drugs illegal in their cities, in case they still can't come to a decision on this. If they don't vote yes and pass this today, there's no more chance until the next legislative session. The bill sunsets on June 30th, which essentially makes drugs illegal at midnight and 1 second on July 1st. So that's unacceptable to the city. We're not going to let drugs just be legal on July 1st. So we are hoping they pass a state law. It would make things a whole lot easier, even though we don't love every part of this state law. What we'll be left with, if they don't at least pass something that is acceptable, like first misdemeanor, and, you know, having it be a level that's going to divert people or encourage them to think a little more carefully about using drugs in our city, we have to craft something of our own, and it has to take effect before July 1st. So we're kind of still, we're all like waiting with bated breath to see what the legislature is going to do today, but that's where we're at. And so I've been working with other mayors across the state. Chief has been working extensively with WASPIC and all other agencies across the state as well, just trying to figure out what we're going to do as the city of Gig Harbor, because that's the only thing we have jurisdiction over is our 6 miles. But in those 6 miles, we want people to be as safe as possible. We want businesses to be safe. We want residents to be safe when they're sleeping in their homes at night. This just has to change. And so please cross your fingers with us that this state law will pass. If nothing else, countywide, the executive, we've already met as mayors across the county, city administrators and managers have met to talk about at least trying to have some sort of a cohesive ordinance across the county, so it makes it easier for, you know, Gig Harbor is surrounded by unincorporated Pierce County, and then so are a lot of our other Pierce County cities. So one way or another, drugs will be illegal on July 1st. It'll just either be in the form of a local ordinance or a state law, and we'll know today. So fingers crossed we'll know today. So again, thank you all for coming. We'll turn it back over to Miriam.
Thank you so much for attending today, and for those of you online, thank you for watching this presentation. There are that resource guide that the Retail Association brought is in the back. I think there's still some available. If not, and you prefer the digital copy, there's the QR code that you can scan for that. So thanks again for coming. Have a great day.